In the heart of Zalanga, a modern and bustling city, the afternoon was disrupted by the loud accusation hurled at Anuli, a 14-year-old girl. Her stepmother, Amma, stormed into the living room, her voice filled with malicious glee. "Anuli is pregnant," she declared, her words slicing through the air like a blade. The announcement sent shock waves through the family. Anuli stood frozen, her eyes wide with disbelief. "It's not true," she protested, her voice trembling. "I haven't done anything." But her cries fell on deaf ears. Her father, Oba, avoided her gaze. The weight of their judgment pressed down on her, suffocating her. Amma's lips coiled into a snare, her eyes glinting with triumph. "You have brought shame upon this family," she added, her tone dripping with venom. Anuli's heart pounded in her chest as she looked around, hoping for someone to believe her, to stand by her side, but she found no such solace. In the dimly lit room, the tension was palpable. Anuli's father, Oba, finally broke his silence, his voice heavy with disappointment.
"Anuli,"
he said, his tone cold and distant.
"I trusted you. How could you betray us like this?"
The pain in his voice was undeniable, and it cut Anuli deeper than any of the accusation hurled at her. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Father, please, you have to believe me," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "I have done nothing wrong," but her words seemed to bounce off the wall, unheard and unacknowledged. Amma stepped forward, her arms crossed over her chest. "She's lying," she insisted. "Look at her. She's nothing but a disgrace." Unyoka, Anuli's stepsister, stood in the corner, her arms folded, a smug expression on her face. "I always knew she would bring shame to this family," she said, her voice filled with contempt. Anuli turned to her sister, her last hope for understanding, but was met with only cold indifference. The walls of the house seemed to close in on her. The warmth and love she once knew, now replaced with judgment and scorn. Oba's face was etched with sorrow as he looked away from his daughter.
"You have broken my heart. Anuli,"
he said softly, his voice laced with pain.
"I can't have you in my house anymore."
His words echoed in Anuli's mind, each one a dagger to her heart. "Father, please don't do this," she begged, reaching out to him. "I need you to believe me. I'm not lying." But Oba's eyes remained distant, his mind made up.
"You must leave,"
he said, his voice barely above a whisper.
"You have brought nothing but shame to this family."
The rain outside began to fall harder, mirroring the tears streaming down Alumi's face. She clutched her bag tightly as she was escorted to the door. Amma's hand on her shoulder was firm and unyielding. "Out you go," he said with a final shove. Anuli stumbled onto the porch, the cold rain washing over her, mixing with her tears. She turned back to the house, hoping for one last glance of love or understanding, but the door slammed shut, leaving her in the dark. The rain poured relentlessly as Anuli stood on the doorstep, her clothes clinging to her skin. She shivered, both from the cold and the realization of her isolation. Her family, her blood, had turned their backs on her. Nyoka peered through the window, her expression one of triumph and satisfaction. Anuli's heart broke at the sight. The bond they once shared, now shattered beyond repair. Clutching her back closer, she took a hesitant step away from the house, her feet splashing into the growing puddles. Each step felt heavier than the last, as the city around her blurred in the downpour. The streets, usually bustling with life, now seemed deserted and hostile. She walked aimlessly, her mind a whirlwind of emotions, seeking refuge from the storm within and without. As the rain soaked her to the bone, Anuli's thoughts drifted to the warmth and safety of her home, now a place of rejection and pain. Her heart ached for the days when her mother's laughter filled the house, a stark contrast to the cold, harsh reality she now faced. The rain mingled with her tears, washing away the last remnants of innocence and hope. Anuli's feet carried her to a familiar path, leading to a place she hadn't visited in years. Her mind transported her to a time when she was just 5 years old, on her birthday. The house had been filled with laughter and joy, her mother's arms wrapped around her as they celebrated with cake and songs. Her father, Oba, had lifted her into the air, making her jiggle uncontrollably. It was a day of happiness, unmarred by the bitterness that would later consume her life. But after joy was fleeting, the memory shifted to a darker moment when her mother stumbled upon her father's infidelity with Ama.